Hello everyone, Zelarinth here, and for today's video on Umamusume, as we've gotten through day 1 of round 2 of Aries Cup, one common thing I'm seeing from a lot of people, whether it's on Reddit as you can see here, or in Discord, or even from viewers that were streaming their runs last night while I was streaming, is that a lot of people are now getting crushed in round 2 versus when they were dominating in round 1 or were doing very well in round 1. And even so, they are getting crushed in round 2, they have dominated in round 2 in previous Champions meetings. And what is so different about Aries Cup overall, and if this is going to be something you have to take into consideration in future Champions meetings as well. And so that's kind of what I want to discuss here, and we're going to do that through looking at my Umas and kind of my team comp that I'm using in this Champions meeting. And when we go to it, one thing, if you've been watching my runs, you'll know in round 1 I was using my Mihono Bourbon, Seiyun Sky, and then Christmas Ogre Cap. But then I decided to dump Christmas Ogre Cap for round 2 and go with a triple frontrunner setup and go into that with that team. And now I'm not using Christmas Ogre Cap at all, even though, as you probably already know, she's the most consistent and strongest Uma if you build well around her, and why I may have done that. And it's ultimately going to come down to the big difference maker that you're really going to see in Trackblazer as a whole overall versus what you may have seen in Unity Cup. And that is the fact that you can no longer just stat stick your opponents and win outright from just having stronger stats and making up for maybe having lackluster skills for the race. And that is one of the core problems with my Christmas Ogre Caps. Now, this is the first one I have. The one big negative here is I don't have max power. I mean, that's already a negative there. You should be able to very easily get max speed, power, and wit on her with if you do enough runs to try and pull it off. But also on the mid game. Now, this one's actually got a decent-ish mid game overall, but it is still missing some things that you could have in there, especially in that early race. The only thing I really have is Shrewd Step to try and kind of help her out there. But versus having something like, say, Groundwork or Uma Stand or something to try and elevate her into the front of the pace chasers. Because one of the things Christmas Ogre Cap's wanting, and why she has a lower win rate on my side, one of the reasons is she was struggling against my frontrunners because they're super strong, which we're going to see in a second. But also, when my frontrunners were losing, or if they didn't get angling and scheming, she was never really able to come out and win the race to save it for them. And that is because of the missing skills. That is the biggest difference. Now we have this one I built. This one I was able to get max power. Not quite max speed, but we have max wit. And then we had Firm Course Menace to kind of make up for that. But this one was missing Speed Star. It didn't trigger for me correctly there. But also, as you can see, the mid game, man. We only have Pace Chaser corners, no medium corners. We have one hit on medium straightaways, no pace straightaways. I mean, overall, the skills are not all the best. And also we have Soft Step instead of Corner Recovery. So this one, while it is decently consistent, it is not as consistent as Corner Recovery. And the end of the run, we only have Bar Carol of Blessings. We don't have something like Homestretch Haste. No other ones like Triumphant Pulse or anything else to help really give her the last oomph at the end. And so that is the big difference maker. That is what I was talking about early on when it came going into Trackblazer, is that it is the great equalizer in that anybody can get the stats now. It doesn't matter if you're a whale that has all the strongest cards. If you have basically enough cards, you have enough race bonus, and you play enough runs to just kind of get that luck within a Trackblazer run, you're going to hit the stats. And you can hit them pretty consistently. Even on bad runs, you can hit the stats. But in order to have that really good run, not only do you have to have the stats, you have to have the skills. And so the strongest Christmas Ogre Caps that you're going to see out there have something like Firm Course Menace, right-handed, Spring Runner. They have Bear Carol of Blessings. They have another end race skill for speed. They have even more strong mid-game. And then also, they also have, of course, the best comp for them, the hardest one to counter. I know a lot of people don't like it. Taking 2 Dominators to slow everybody else down so they can just outright pass them. That has been pretty much the strongest comp, and the one that I've pretty much lost to the most in round 2. But it is skills. Skills are the biggest difference maker, and that is how you're going to win these Champions meetings. Versus in Unity Cup, a lot of the times, if you had Media Core skills, but you had max power, max speed, and very high wit, you could just outright win on your stats, as long as you, of course, had your acceleration and all that. And you had some mid-game, you could just win on the stats alone. That is not the case anymore. And you can kind of see the difference when you look at, say, my Mihono Bourbon I have here, who has done extremely well. Now, I do have a little bit of a stat advantage on this one, too, because Turf S, Medium S with max speed and power and very high wit, that is something that is not as regular. A lot of people do not have Turf S, Medium S, and Max on these both. So that one is a little bit of a stat advantage, but also she's got a very, very strong mid-game to pair with it. Only thing that she's ultimately missing here is those skills for the early race, dodging danger, imprudent positioning / ignited wit. Other than that, she pretty much has everything she wants to push herself to the front and get angling and scheming. So, I mean, you can see we have Kiss for Courage. We took Summer Ruzenski's skill. We, of course, have our acceleration with angling and scheming. We got a little bit of extra speed. We got extra power. We got tons of power. Concentration, Escaped Artist, Killer Tunes, Professor of Curvature. Really strong mid-game. Of course, early lead. We have the medium corners. We have front runner corners. Couldn't quite get double circle on that, but if we had that, also still strong. We have straightaways. We have Leader's Pride, Tail Held High, Playtime's Over, Slipstream, Groundwork. She, by herself, if she was the only front runner, would probably be, I'd say, 80% of the time, the one that would be in the front against any other front runners, just because of how strong she is. Now, it doesn't guarantee she wins, because of course you have very strong Ogre caps out there that can, and with paired with Dominators who can beat her, which is ultimately what I lose to the most. But that is the difference maker, is the skills. The same thing with the Summer Ruzenski I made, her biggest weakness being a little bit lower on the power side, but she was just because I wanted a triple front runner to really help push up my front runners to give them a better shot at winning versus my Christmas Ogre cap, which was doing absolutely nothing. She pretty much has everything. We have double right-handed to make up for not max speed. We have Mihono Bourbon's alt. We have angling and scheming. Bunch of mid-race skills, medium corners, front runner corners, Leader's Pride, Slipstream. This one we actually got the positional skills, dodging danger and ignited wit on her. We have, very strong big game. Not as strong as Mihono Bourbon, primarily because of power and no Turf S, but very, very good. And she gets angling and scheming a good chunk of the time as well. As you can see here at 25% win rate, and then 45% from her. They're doing quite well. Then you have my Sane Sky. Ultimately, because her ult is it's a win condition. If she's in first, she pretty much can win very easily because her ult is angling and scheming itself. But because of that, she lacks a mid-race skill, so she doesn't get angling and scheming as often. But she's also still got a very strong mid-game with having Mihono Bourbon and Summer Ruzenski's ults, paired with firm conditions for a little bit more power, a little bit more on the wit side than I'd like. We have Escaped Artist, Professor's Curvature, Killer Tunes, Medium Corners, we have Straightaway Skills, Playtime's Over, Tail Held High, and then potentially Radiant Star. Very, very strong in her own right, and they all do very well. A lot of times, they are the top three. No matter how many frontrunners there are, generally, one or two of them are in the front because of their skills. And that is the difference maker. That is why you might be struggling now, even if you are whale using the strongest cards. You may have pulled on NTR, or you might have pulled on Fuku. You might have Eco Pegasus like I do. You have Ketis and Black you're using. You have Nice Nature Wit. You have Fine Motion Wit. You might be that crazy person that has all the good stuff and you're still struggling. And it is down to skills. Now, how this is going to evolve into the future, because as you know, in Unity Cup, you could stat stick them. Track Laser, the biggest reason is we didn't get any stat cap increases. Once we get to Grand Alive, if you've probably been paying attention to how it's going to work in future scenarios, we'll start seeing the caps being increased on stats. And I believe Grand Live, you can take speed all the way up from 1200 to 1600. And that is going to start being a point again where now you can outstat your opponents and make up for a weaker mid game. Now you still want to have that strong mid game. I'm not saying you can sacrifice it, but you will be able to give yourself an advantage more easily on the stats when they raise the caps. Now, eventually, when we get closer and closer to the JP version, stats will become less and less relevant, because at this point, they're hitting the stats fairly easily in the JP version, especially for like your miles and your mediums that are shorter. And that is just because it's very easy to hit the stats as we get farther in, even with the cap increases. And so skills will continue to become more and more important. They're always adding new skills in. You may have noticed like a day or two ago, we got another patch update. That's because they added in some more skills. There's a nice medium one they've added, for example, for frontrunners, that is a speed decrease. It's the one that'll be coming with Ines Fujin when she drops. She has the gold version of it, but there's a white one for mediums that you can get. And it's effectively, it's not as strong as Dominator or Tether, the white version of it, but it activates from a front, someone that's towards the front, and it hits the 5 behind them as a speed decrease. We've also got some other late surger type skills that came in for, that'll be paired with, I think, the new Guts card and Speed card dropping today. But that's going to be constant. We're always going to be getting these random new skills throughout, and they're going to become more and more and more important to get in your Umas. And that's why if you've watched any JP Umas at today's point, you'll see they have like 40 skills in their for building for a champions meeting, and that's because that's how many you need, and it's very important you get all the strong ones, because that's ultimately how you win. It's no longer going to be a stat difference. And so that is pretty much it. Now, I kind of showcased all these, but as you can, like I showed it, it's ultimately the skills. That is all it is. And looking through what I was looking at on Reddit, I don't have them all up, but a lot of people, when I was looking at their kits, they don't have, like this one doesn't show it, but there's some on there where they show it, and they are just outright, their skills are not up to par, and they were just getting away, taking worse skills. Some of them even wrong skills. I've seen Christmas Ogre Caps that didn't even have the right heals, that have very strong stats, which means in round 1, strong stats, you can generally outstat people in round 1 because everybody's in round 1. So the people that just throw any random Uma in there just to get the carrots, you're going to go up against them and win them in round 1. That's not going to be the case with round 2, especially Group A, because those people at least got 3 wins on a ticket, so they have to have semi-competent Umas. I'm not going to say super strong ones, but they have to be semi-competent enough that they can get those 3 wins, and thus that is why people are starting to really get crushed. Now, I will say Aries Cup, and we might see this a little bit in Tokyo 2400, the next one. I mean, the double Dominator comp alongside the very consistent alt Christmas Ogre Cap is a very strong combination, and that is ultimately, like, when I look at mine, that is ultimately what's gotten me a majority of my losses, is that comp. That is one thing, and that's going to be something that's always going to be a problem in mediums, to the point, from what I understand, in some of the future medium champions meetings, they will outright ban bringing those debuffs, or I think debuffs are just outright banned in some mediums, and that is because Dominator is a very popular strat. So you just know, the next one will probably see it, but being Tokyo 2400, you may also see a mixture of people bringing Mystifying Murmur instead, trying to knock you down on the stamina, because it's going to be a little bit harder on the stamina requirements in the next one, because it's an additional 400 meters that you have to do. But yeah, that's pretty much it. That is why you might be struggling now. Everybody's probably struggling. It's a little bit more balanced in that sense. Like very few people, very few people are getting very, very high win rates. I mean, you can still have a very high win rate with a very strong Christmas Ogre Cap, but even then, you're just going to lose on the occasion. I mean, if you run into another person that has the max stats, they have a decent enough mid game, RNG can lose you the race. I've had that with my front runners, where they've just lost to another front runner just from bad RNG on my side, even if they were weaker. And so that'll be the case pretty much through the rest of Track Blazer. Especially Mile. Mile's going to feel like a sprint almost to a certain extent, because everybody's, I mean, that's even easier to get the stats. Sprint, of course, will be Sprint. That one's always going to have RNG. And that one will have the Throne card for, everybody's going to borrow Throne, which is going to make it even easier to get the stats. But if you're one of those people, especially someone that spends a lot of money on the support cards, do know in Grand Live you will be able to kind of outstat your opponents again. You'll still want to get the skills, and then that'll just be the case from that point forward. But yeah, that's just my thoughts on it. I've just been seeing a lot of comments on people struggling in this one, and I thought I'd just make this to kind of explain it to a certain extent while you're struggling. But that's going to be it for now, and if you like my content, if you could like, comment, subscribe, it really helps, and thanks for watching.